Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Sports Community live stream. I'm Steve Pallas, and I would like to start with an apology for yesterday. We didn't have a live stream yesterday because I was frantically travelling back from New South Wales to Victoria. I was on the way down and heard the announcement from Premier Daniel Andrews that we were closing the borders. And then had to work. My wife was still in New South Wales, so we had to all frantically organise coming back to Victoria today. So my apologies for no live stream yesterday, but we are back on track today. I'm really pleased that people are taking advantage of the opportunity to send me their questions, their real life scenarios, and just asking for our thoughts and our opinions. And so I received this email yesterday, and I think it really highlights a challenge that many clubs are facing. So bear with me. I'll put my glasses on because, the over 55 person in me. Hi, Steve. As a small club, COVID-19 has hit us pretty big. We had 4 footy teams penciled in for season 2020. Now it looks like we will probably lose at least one, due to parents concerned about COVID-19. This is also impacting on our other teams, especially the younger age groups. Across all teams now, it is looking like we will have a bare minimum, with a lot of players' parents saying they won't play this year due to COVID, but they will be back in 2021. We would have probably preferred the league to cancel this season, so we'll probably lose more players before the season starts on Sunday, and that won't leave us in a good position, especially if cases continue to rise. How do we go about trying to recruit new players to ensure we can still stay afloat and power forward, especially with our 60th anniversary coming in next year? Well, there's a whole lot of kind of points in that email, and first, I think that reflects the realities of a lot of clubs. Is that although the competitions have gone forward, a lot of clubs would have preferred that they probably didn't. That's the first point. But we're seeing a lot of parents exercising their options for their children not to participate in the sporting competitions this year, probably deeming it an unnecessary risk. And I guess that's a question that my wife and I are going to be having over the next couple of days as we decide whether we're comfortable with our children, our young children, going back into soccer and netball. So it'll be an interesting discussion for our family. But the question is how, if we are going ahead with the competition and we are going ahead with the teams, how to recruit the players. And in a part of the final part of the email, Linton says, we have tried social media, posting it on the community social Facebook pages. However, this isn't really working. So, and there's a reason that it won't be working at the moment, because one of the weaknesses of social media posts is social media posts don't overcome the fears and the anxiety of the people that they're talking to. So really, the way that I see it is the strategy to recruit players in this current environment is really about harnessing the power, or harnessing the parents and the players that are currently playing, and even those that aren't, and asking them to go into their networks and their friends and their family to recruit the players. Because what's likely to happen is that the people that we talk to, they're going to say, oh, I'm not sure if it's safe. I'm not sure whether I want my kid playing that sport. I'm not sure whether there's going to be lots of, I'm not sure. And the problem with social media and digital posts, etc., is that they don't respond to that apprehension, that anxiety that everyone now currently has. So, but asking our community to go into their community and have these conversations and telling them, making sure that they say, no, I understand, but our club has got these great processes, socially distanced, really strong on hygiene, really strong on personal health and safety, really prepared really well. Just get in, play, get out. Where it's a really positive environment for our kids. And so then what we can have is that person whom we've targeted that's got the children that we obviously think are in that age group, we can actually have that discussion with them. And it's not about overcoming or tricking them or selling them, but it's about giving them all the information they need to be able to make that decision. So while we're massive fans of social media, the real heavy lifting is going to be done by people in this scenario. So if I'm a club president, if I'm a club coach, I'm actually really working hard in the short term on motivating, inspiring our community to go out into their community and talk and invite people into our clubs and really empower them with the information that they need. How are we going to be COVID safe? How are we going to ensure our club doesn't become a cluster, so that they can then answer all the questions that are going to be, or respond to all the anxieties that are naturally going to come straight back at them when they raise the discussion. So this is a very good opportunity for us to be recruiting, because lots and lots of sport is actually stopping, postponing, changing, etc. So while particularly in the safe environments, not necessarily in the Victorian hotspots at the moment, but certainly outside of those hotspots, then this is probably a really good strategy. The social media and the digital strategy then complements that strategy. So instead of expecting the Facebook post to do all the marketing and the heavy lifting, what the Facebook post then can be done is a tool or a resource that your audience can then go and tag their friends in, and that starts the conversation, but it's not likely to close the deal until that face-to-face, that virtual conversation happens. I do want to show you it's a different format, but again, the concept of using your audience to go out into their audience and to recruit people in is one that was used really effectively in a different context by Richmond Football Club. So again, I'd be using email, and let me just bring up a screen and I'll just bring it up. So at the start of 2018, so it's a bit hard to read on the screen, and those that have been in the sports community webinars will have seen this screen a lot. Sorry, I'll just picked up onto the comments. So I saw Tricia and Alexander. I saw your comments, so I'll come to them in just a moment. So welcome to you. Good morning. Deb, I'm sure you're out there, and Emma Gallagher from Cricket Vic, I'm sure you're out there as well. So good morning to everybody. Love it for you to put your comments, your thoughts, your ideas, your suggestions into the chat. Now, different context, but what Richmond Football Club did at the start of the 2018 season, and this is the concept of harnessing the power, the passion of their members, was they sent all their members an email saying, hey, we'd love your help to get us from 78,000 members to 90,000 members, right? From 78 to 90,000 members. All we had to do, they said, simply forward this email to a friend or family member, and then if they join, etc. So what they were effectively asking the Richmond supporter groups or their current membership was to go out into their friends and family and find the people most likely to join, and then send them the email, right? And so what that actually did, the result of that was Richmond actually went from 78,000 members at the start of 2018 to 106,000 members. Now that's actually, forget that it's a professional club, because we can just take the zeros off and it goes from 78 members to 106 members if we want to bring it into the context of a community sports club. But the strategy was so impressive, given that at 2010, so less than 8 years earlier, Richmond only had 38,000 members. So what they did, this was such an incredible strategy, because they harnessed the power of their supporter group. Now, in your club, your members love your club just as much as any professional sporting team members love their club. the reality is our members love our club probably more because they contribute to it, they actually belong to it, and those sorts of things. So this is the time that we harness that and ask them to go into their audiences and use that most powerful influencing technique, which is word of mouth, and then support them with the information that they need to send through. So make sure they're empowered to answer the frequently asked questions. Tricia, or maybe they should pull the teams and not play instead of recruiting. Perhaps look at the reasons for the decisions not to play, or the association should look at different options for return to play. And Tricia, that's a fair comment. That's a fair comment, but if, particularly around the rest of the country, we're seeing very large areas that haven't had COVID cases for weeks, and in some cases months. So there's no logical reason why those groups wouldn't go back, but that doesn't mean that the participants don't have the apprehension that's creating these challenges. And so yes, so there's going to be a really big focus on should we be playing or not, and in some places, particularly in the hotspots. In Victoria, that's the answer is clearly no, and the reality is those competitions won't play. But we're in a transition period from getting life back to normal while COVID is still around us. And so what we've seen in Victoria is it doesn't take much for a spike to occur. Right, and so that's why sports are very much making it the preference. So while one group would argue that we should be conservative, the other side of the argument, and I'm sitting on the fence because I think personal choice is the key here. But the other side of the argument is that giving the kids something to do, social connectiveness, mental health, getting them out in the fresh air, getting them exercising again, getting them off the screens, there is huge benefit in actually proceeding with whether it's organised sport or recreation. So there's two sides of the coin, and so but being led by the chief medical officers of the state and territories to be defining that is kind of what's driving the discussion, right? So if they're deeming it safe, then as a community, then then we need the choice of whether we participate in that or not. But if the competitions have deemed it safe enough to go ahead and the club deems it safe enough to continue, or that they would like to continue, then the underlying question still remains, how do we get enough players to fill the teams so that we can get the benefit? Alexander, at the moment, individual sports look better for competitions. Yes and no. Yes and no. So it's because individual sports often don't bring the social connectiveness. They don't bring the sense of belonging to a team and those sorts of things. But obviously in individual sports, you can social distance a lot better. And because it's individual, you can control a lot more easily what's going on around you. So some people might feel that that's a better solution for them. So my point in both Tricia and Alexander is not to dismiss your point. There's that side of the discussion, but there's equally the other side of the discussion. And I'd be really interested in how the discussion goes within our house, given that my wife and I are both very informed on the pros and cons of it. So coming down to making a choice about whether we have our children in these environments or not will be a really interesting discussion. I'll actually let you know. There's not a win-loss scenario. It's just here's the facts. How do we feel about the risks and those sort of things? Fair call, Steve. There are many hotspot areas still keeping competition going. Tricia, there shouldn't be now. In Victoria, you're in a hotspot. You're only allowed to leave for 4 reasons: your home, work, medical, exercise, and to care. I think they are off the top of my head. Going to play sport is not one of those reasons that you're actually allowed to leave home. In the hotspot area, so those competitions should not be proceeding. What we're also seeing in Victoria is competitions that go over a larger geographic area where they might be playing teams inside the hot spots. Those competitions are actually now pulling the pin. So, for example, the Victorian Amateur Football Association, which has got one of the biggest football associations in the country, they've pulled the pin on the season. So we're seeing lots and lots of people, lots and lots of competitions now in Melbourne pulling the pin on the season. But on the other side of the coin and everywhere else in the country, what we're really seeing is competitions ramp right back up because it's deemed to be safe. Fair call, there are many in the hotspots. Our club withdrew from the basketball comp based on restriction postcodes for turn 3, but instead we'll attempt to hold training. Yeah. So again, my thinking is, how do we get the kids active safely? And it doesn't always need to be in competition. It can be in training. It can potentially be in social, particularly within the groups that they're already socially connected with, and I guess keeping it within the bubble of their networks already. Yes, they expect to run as soon as restrictions are lifted. Yeah, there's many elements to the discussion, and there is a commercial element to it, but by and large, there is also what is driving a lot of the association sports administrators is just getting that semblance of normality back and giving people the opportunity to play, and then allowing them to make their choice. So this was always going to be the challenging period, the transitioning out of the lockdown period, transitioning into normality, that transition period where everyone has a different perspective, a different view. And so ultimately, don't be too critical of the people trying to run sport, because if the chief medical officers say it's okay, then we need to respect the right to do that, as in anything else in life. But that then gives people the opportunity to make that personal decision. So, and again, just going back to Linton's question about the going and recruiting the players, just because a parent, so if we choose not to have our kids play, it doesn't mean to say that I won't encourage or communicate the opportunity for other people's kids to play who may choose to have a different risk profile, if you like, to what I do, or may do. I'm not saying I do or won't. So those parents that are not having their kids participate are potentially still just as likely to go out and help you recruit, because they want the club to be successful, and they've already said that they'll be back in 2021, and it's their personal choice, and they're not necessarily – this is not something – COVID is one of the things that we're seeing. People aren't pushing their personal preferences onto others. They're just making their decision and respecting others, which I think is really, really, really cool. So Linton, I wish you the best of luck. Tricia and Alexander, thank you so much for entering the conversation. That's what we love to do at Sports Community, explore the pros and cons. We would rarely take a position and say this is right. We love the ability to say, right, like we are on the salary cap discussion, we're exploring the pros and cons and trying to find allow people to make informed decisions. So thank you for being part of the discussion today, because that kind of brought other perspectives to the conversation. Tomorrow, I'm really excited that tomorrow is the first of a 5-part series or pilot with Vic Health on doing sport differently. So we're going to look at looking at sport in really how to engage participants that are not really currently participating, or they used to participate and not participating, looking at how the world has changed in regards to how people want to participate. And I think COVID is really going to drive that change, or that drive, that continue to drive people to social formats and Tricia, as you said, the training formats and informal recreations and and go from there. So really excited. We've got some great, inspiring guests actually over the next 5 Wednesdays. So eSport Wednesday, join us. Thank you to Vic Health for first of all doing all the research, and then the clubs to apply the research that now we get to share with everybody. So awesome. Linton, it's great to have you on the live stream. Thank you for sending in the email. It's the discussion's interesting, and Tricia does raise a good point that you as a club may actually choose that you don't necessarily want to participate in the competitions for this year, and it's got to be okay if that's your choice as well. So hope that's helped, Linton. Till tomorrow, I'm Steve Pallas, and thank you so much for being part of our sports community.